Wallace joining us from Austin. So much to chew on here because obviously Texas won a big game. The women's basketball team now in the top two in America. But let's first off on the gridiron in football. Yesterday was an insane day, and we'll dive more into the individual coaching matchups. But have you seen anything like what we saw yesterday in the Southeastern Conference with all these head coaches, the moves and everything else?
Yeah, all at once. But I think that was all because they were waiting for the big domino to fall with Lane Kiffin, obviously, and then everything fell into place. But no, and then you have the Kentucky thing to kind of cap off the night. Mark Stoops made official today. But I think we saw it coming. I think the fact that Lane Kiffin wouldn't commit to Ole Miss before the Egg Bowl was clearly a signal that he's not going to, or else why wouldn't he have before that game? So, between that and the lack of chaos on Saturday for the Texas perspective, they just sat back and watched the show yesterday. And it's some bad karma, guys, I always say, to root against teams. And none of it worked out for Texas on Saturday.
Yeah, let's dive into that because Texas obviously took care of business, and that was the first night game between the Longhorns and Aggies in a very long time. From an atmosphere standpoint, what was that game like? And then, like you said, afterwards, needing to root for some chaos outside of that game, understanding, yes, they took care of business on the field, but also did not get the help they really needed to off of it.
Atmosphere was off the charts. It's the first time they've played in Austin since 2010, and a lot of things have changed here. The whole game day atmosphere, not only inside the stadium but outside the stadium, obviously the high-tech stuff that they didn't have 15 years ago. And then the crowd had to bring it, and they did, even though, they were 2 weeks removed from that Georgia game that took a lot of the wind out of the sails. But, yeah, some great shots right there of the drone shows and just 102,000 actually turning that place into a great environment. Texas has had a reputation over the years for not having the greatest home field advantage, and that has kind of flipped the last few years, especially when A.D. Chris Del Conte came in and made it a point. And then they took care of business on the field. Big second half. It was a weird game, guys, because they go into halftime down 10-3. Aggies score a minute before the half, knowing they're going to get the ball to start the second half, and you kind of feel, okay, this seems like an offensive game that kind of reminded you of Florida or Kentucky, where they're just not doing anything. And A&M playing with all that confidence, you figure they get the ball, they score, then it's a two-score game, and then things get difficult. And Texas got the stop, and they got the quick score, even though it was a field goal. But two things happened. They ran the ball, they got a stop, then they do it again. And the second half was a whole different story. And, yeah, they took care of their part. And, guys, we've been beating our head against the wall here talking about running the ball. And, lo and behold, it took the Aggies again for Texas to do it. Trey Wisner, 155 after 186 last year in College Station.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I think that was one of your keys to the game when we talked with you last week about what, Texas needs to do. And it makes you wonder where that's been all year. But it felt like it was just a weird game also for Arch Manning, because we had talked about, all this momentum he had built up heading into this Texas A&M game. And it felt like he kind of reverted back to the Arch Manning that we saw earlier in the year. But, I mean, he did kind of just do enough to win. What'd you make of his performance?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was a little bit of both where he missed some throws. I'm not making excuses, but it was pretty breezy. And there were some throws that clearly something affected him. But then, he made some plays. The play to Wingo, the touchdown in the back of the end zone. Yeah. First month Arch Manning takes off and runs. So you saw that. And then it looked like he was going to airmail it. And Wingo made a nice catch. The tight end got involved again. Jack Endries had a big game. And you're right. He made enough plays. He wasn't even 50% passing. And obviously he made some plays with his legs, the biggest being the touchdown. But the fact that, again, they didn't turn it over. And he made some plays. So it wasn't like, he was a detriment. It was just they did a lot of other things to help win the game. And I'm sure Arch is saying, man, if I'm watching the back of number 5 run away from me, I'm thrilled about that, which is what he saw a few times. And, of course, the one that iced the ball game there in the last drive after that Kobe Black interception. By the way, that interception, we're calling the game, and, you don't see it. You just see it real quickly, and you think, okay, he kind of jumped the route, great catch. Then you watch the replay. Holy cow.
Yeah.
That was one of the best catches of the year, offense or defense. He kept it in one hand, rolled over, kept it in one arm, and made the catch. And that's a guy that, hasn't played a lot of snaps at corner, especially in those situations. So
Right.
Storybook for Michael Taft to get the pick, where they got a little pressure and Reed underthrew it, and Taft was right there. It hit him between the 1 and the 6. And then back-to-back interceptions, and Texas doesn't turn it over, and they run the ball. That's a pretty good recipe, especially after the way the first half went, where they didn't get any turnovers and they didn't run the ball, and they scored just 3 points in the first half.
Right. It feels like a team that's just doing exactly what they need to do to be able to win games, and obviously that wasn't something that happened at the beginning of the season. Right now it's kind of politics season, whether it's politicking to get a guy to
Sark's
New York.
everywhere today,
Hell yeah. Yeah. It's politicking to get a guy to New York City for the Heisman Trophy, politicking to get a team in the college football playoff. Before we get your thoughts, Roger, let's hear from Coach Steve Sarkisian saying his team is one of the top 12.
We're the first team since the 2019 national champion LSU team to beat 3 top 10 ranked teams in the same season during the regular season. So let's just chew on that for a second. There's been a lot of great football teams that have played over the last 6 years, but we're the first team since LSU to beat 3 top 10 ranked teams in the same season during the regular season. Okay? I think we have the number 5 ranked toughest schedule in the country. We've played the number 1, the number 3, and number 4 ranked teams in the country. Okay? We went on the road to Ohio State in week 1 and lost to them on a 1-score game, and we have the ball at the end of the game, and we outgained them by nearly 200 yards, and no one else has been close to a 1-score game against them. But I think more importantly, it's the message that what do we want to send to the head coaches and the athletic directors around the country? Do you want us not to schedule Ohio State? Because if we're a 10-2 team right now, this isn't a discussion. We're in the playoff. But we were willing to go up there and play that game.
What I found really interesting there, Roger, it was like an actor that already knew his lines. He knew every single thing. He knows their entire resume. And then he brought up something that I think a lot of people will take time to pause and say, hey, he has a point there. They did not have to schedule Ohio State. Ohio State's the number 1 team in the country. They could schedule just some nobody team, get an easy win. They're 10-2 and now in the college football playoff. At 9-3 right now, given their losses and the way they have been so far, do you think that Sark makes a good point that his team should be in? And what do you think ultimately the committee does?
He makes a great point because that's what he's got to do.
Yeah,
I mean,
for
sure. Well, he has no choice.
Yeah.
He's banging the drum on the SEC network this morning. He's on Colin Cowherd. He's going on Dan Patrick tomorrow with one message, and that is, hey, let a 3-loss team in that beat 3 top 10s, lost to the number, at the time, the number 2 team. The Florida game was a 1-score game. The Ohio State game was a 1-score game. Georgia got away from him, but his point there is if you watch the game, you saw it was a 4-point game into the fourth quarter. Then, what happened. But, that's the best he can do. They did what they could, and I think what stings more than anything is if they're sitting there in a few weeks watching Oklahoma, watching A&M, and just icing on the cake for them, watching Texas Tech. Didn't play Texas Tech, obviously, but still, you're talking about 3 programs that they don't get along real well with. And to see all those 3 in the playoff, 2 they beat, 1 they didn't play, and they're on the outside looking in, that's going to sting a little bit more. But it's the third loss, guys, and I know you probably talked about it till you're blue in the face, and I know we have here. But when humans get in a room and you take all that information and then you line up the teams and there's one big 3 there, human nature tells me that, and I'll be interested tomorrow night. Will they move them considerably up compared to the AP poll and the coaches poll where they're 14? Yeah. They get to 12, 11, maybe. But even then, they got to get to 10 because they're going to be 2 behind them. They get automatic bids. So I don't know. I just think that 3 is going to be the difference, and I'll be fascinated to hear because it's going to be a question to Hunter Yurachek probably tomorrow.
Right.
And for sure on Selection Sunday. What about a 3-loss team, Texas, that is the only team to beat 3 top 10s? What else could his answer be other than they have 3 losses and they have a 25-point loss and they lost to a sub-500 Florida team?
Yeah, that's exactly right. We talked about it at the time that Florida loss might kill them there for their college football playoff chances. Looks like it might, but as you said, the committee's poll comes out tomorrow. Really